ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ओम नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्मविद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च। हरि ओम, salutations to all. So we were seeing the third valli of the second chapter and the first verse there, which describes the analogy of the inverted tree. Using that analogy, samsara is being described. ऊर्ध्वमूलो अवाक्शाखः एषो अश्वत्थः सनातनः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्म तदेवामृतम् उच्यते तस्मिन् लोकाः श्रिताः सर्वे तदुनात्येति कश्चन एतद् वै तत्. So that's the mantra. And we saw that Shankaracharya ji has given a very beautiful commentary on this, where he says that urdhvam moolam yat tadvishnoho paramam padam. So the roots are above, meaning the source of this universe is that supreme self. So we had seen the ascending order of subtlety. Sense objects, the senses, the sense objects, indriyabhya parahyartha. So senses, then the sense objects, then the mind, the intellect, and then that which is beyond. Beyond the intellect is the total intellect. Beyond that is the avyakta, and beyond avyakta is the supreme purusha. There is nothing greater than purusha. Purushanna param kinchit sa kashta sa paragatihi. So Kathopanishad had explained that earlier. So that supreme state is the root. Now root is that which nurtures the entire tree. So the whole universe is nurtured, nourished by the supreme, and it is actually the appearance of the supreme only. That's why it is Sanatana. Also it is Sanatan because it is beginningless and it continuously it is there. So Esho Ashwata Sanatana. Then he says Avyaktam Adisthavarantha Samsara Vriksha Urdhvamulaha. So this Avyakta onwards, what is manifesting down is all Samsara Vriksha. Vriksha means what? Vrishchanat Vrikshaha. That which can be destroyed, which is destructible, perishable, that is Vriksha. And so we saw the Lakshana of Samsara. Last time we were seeing about that. Janma, Jara, Marana, Shoka, Adi, Aneka Anarthatmaka. That is the first Lakshana of Samsara. That it is, the life here is filled with this pain caused by Janma, birth, then Jara, old age, then Marana, death. Not only these are broad. Adi Aneka Anarthatmaka. Many such pains are there in the world. So that is one nature of samsara. Second, we saw Pratikshanam Anyatha Swabhavaha. Maya Marichi Udaka Gandharva Nagaradi Vat. Every moment it is changing, continuously changing. Pratikshanam anyatha swabhava. And what it is, we are seeing opposite of that, anyatha swabhava. Like the example given here is the desert and the mirage in the desert. So we don't see the sand, we are seeing that as water. So that is called anyatha swabhava. Then drashta nashta swarupatvat avasanecha vrikshavat abhavatmakaha. It is of the nature of destruction, even as we are seeing drashta nashta swabhava. So we think we are seeing something, but it has already changed. Like even our body, every minute how many cells are being born and how many are getting destroyed. The body is not the same. Even the world, as we are seeing people change, objects change, everything keeps on changing. So we are dealing with what actually? We are not dealing with the person who, as the person is. We are dealing with the image in the mind. This becomes more easy to understand when we speak about the stars. So through science, we come to understand that. So if a star is, let us say, some 1 million light years away, it takes 1 million light years for light to reach here for us then to see that there is a star. But actually the star is not there or may have changed also. So what we are seeing, what is actually there, completely different. So drashta nashta swarupatvat. Avasanecha vrikshavad abhavatmaka, and it becomes abhavatmaka. It becomes absent. Even as we are seeing it, it looks as though it is present, but it may be actually absent. So that's the nature. Then kadali stambhavat nissaraha, like the stalk of a plantain tree, there is no essence, there is no taste, there is no sara, nissara. Now, aneka shata pakhanda buddhi vikalpa aspada. It is the foundation for many people who are cunning, malicious, who have negative intentions, who want to exploit. This aneka. So the world is filled with like that. People like that who are out there in the world to manipulate, to cheat, to exploit. And human being doesn't leave any chance of exploitation. No chance. Goes on manipulating people. Even in the most difficult times and crises, human being doesn't leave. He exploits. Sorry. And what not the human being thinks of exploiting. The masks which are coming now, they also become source of exploitation. What is supposed to protect? Some people put some chemicals on the mask and they have been selling, and then the people who take and they wear the mask, they get looted. Now, when crisis is there, what all is happening? The human being doesn't leave, manipulate. Now, such minds will anyway not be able to discover the divine, but one has to be alert of such minds because they are there in the world. See, a lot of people think that if I become spiritual, I will become naive, I will become so simple that anybody will exploit me. If I am spiritual and if I feel I am getting exploited, that is because I am not being smart. Nobody told in spirituality, don't be smart, don't be aware. In fact, spiritual person has to be much more alert and aware because one knows that this is the nature of samsara. At least the outside, the person who is not following spirituality, at least that person doesn't know. Like the water in the desert. A novice doesn't know it is not water. He thinks it's there and he runs. But a seasoned traveler knows it's not water. Why will that person run? Same way, when we know that samsara is drishta nashta swarupa and aneka pakhanda, vikalpaspada, why should one be such a naive person? One should be very alert and aware that there may be people who are out there to exploit. So then how should one live? Live with alertness, live with smartness, and live with caution. No, but then I have trust issues. I can't trust people. That today is a big problem is trust. Whom to trust? That's an irony, no? With all our development, technology, and so many things, we can't trust people only. Who will turn when nobody knows? So, being aware of the nature of some types of people, one should become cautious. How, Bhagavan gives the examples of his own examples of how he becomes alert and how he deals with people who are dushta buddhi. He doesn't run away, nor he gets exploited. Becomes very cautious. So one has to have caution. One can even have trust in people, and also know that in out of 10 cases, suppose 2 cases our trust has been breached. Doesn't mean I stop trusting. 8 cases it was not breached. 2 cases it was breached. I should learn why did it get breached. Did I make any mistake? Did I not preempt it, or did I not see the signals and signs? If I was fine, it happened because of only the opposite person suddenly betraying the trust, then one just learns and moves on. Why should there be trust issues? But people have trust issues because one incident and one brands, one gets disturbed. If I have learned out of it, there's no problem. And there is nobody who doesn't get exploited. That is another thing we should know that. This is samsara. Baba. People are out to destroy only. Cutthroat competition is what we tell people. Out there's a cutthroat competition. Everybody is cutting each other's throat only. And the best part is still nobody wants moksha. We keep cutting the throat of everybody and we want to keep coming back again and again to this samsara for what? Cut the throat of other people. Our throat also gets cut. But we will still come. How funny is that? That's called Maya. Now, why is human being doing all that? Because this security is not there inside. Happiness is not there inside. The mind is filled with some tamas, some rajas. So it goes on doing all this. So this is the nature of samsara now. One knows if this is what it is. One may have chosen to come out of it, but doesn't mean the others are not going to do it. So the seeker becomes alert. There are 2 very important attitudes of a seeker. One attitude is sadhak is never a badhak to anybody. Means I should not be an obstacle to anybody. I do what I do in such a way that I do not create disturbances for anybody. Why? Because I understand this is the nature of samsara and how when people do certain things I get disturbed. Why should I add to the life disturbance to the lives of other people? My job is to turn within, realize the truth. So seeker never becomes an obstacle. Especially consciously, so one should never have that bhav, because we know as we go deeper, we have studied the Upanishad, we understand that whatever is out there is appearance of same self. So anything that we do outside to anybody, we are doing to ourselves only. Karmic bondage also we are creating. Emotionally also we corrupt our mind first before we do anything to somebody else. Like the matchstick has to be lit first before it can create fire and light anywhere else and destroy. So at any level, at spiritual level we are one, at emotional level our mind has to be corrupted first. At karmic level we are binding unnecessarily ourselves. Some papa karma one is doing. One to experience that, one has to again take birth. At intellectual level one is compromising with the values. At physical level, one will have to pay the price for it through suffering, pain, sorrow. So why should one do? So spiritual person knows that these are all the things. So no need to engage. So sadhak is one who is never a badhak to anybody. Consciously, to especially never. Unconsciously, many things happen. So that's where we do japa and other things, so that any harm coming to the universe unconsciously also through me can be mitigated. And that's why the concept of pancharana. So we pray to the devatas, we invoke the rishis' grace, study the scriptures, we take care of the family, we take care of any guests, etc., who come, we take care of the beings around us, environment, etc. 5 types of rina: Devarana, Rishi Rina, uh, Pitrurana, Manushyarana, and Bhutarana. The idea is I am indebted to all of them for my existence also and for my evolution also. So I repay my debt, which I can never complete. Repayment is never going to happen complete till realization happens. So I keep giving back. So one attitude is sadhak never becomes a badhak to anybody. But second aspect is a sadhak is always alert. Alertness and vigilance is the price one pays for freedom. Alert about what? Alert about my egoistic thoughts rising and me getting caught in that, and also alert about what is happening around me. Because if I am not alert, my sadhana will be affected first. So this alertness is not out of insecurity. It is not about having not trusting people. The alertness is to protect my mind only. That if somebody comes and exploits, then it takes more time to recover from that. The sadhana time, the mind is distracted now from the sadhana. So one becomes very alert and cautious. Not to allow, when we know that there is a fire, we know fire burns. We know a tiger is a carnivorous animal. So we become cautious. And we take the appropriate steps to protect ourselves. Whether it is distancing or removing them from life, or it is anything else that one has to do, one will do appropriately without dvesha in the heart. Even if one has to fight them without dvesha in the heart, like that's what Arjun was told, and Bhagwan made Arjun fight the war, telling him don't fight for revenge, don't fight for land, don't fight for getting the kingdom or any fame. Fight because you have to do your duty as a kshatriya and eliminate the adharmic forces. That's all. So it doesn't prevent me from fighting. If I need to fight, I need to fight. There is no question that a seeker doesn't become weak. What attitude one has, the mind inside doesn't get spoiled. So alertness is very, very crucial. And one very important thing to understand is, if I am exploiting anybody, it cannot be without me getting stuck in my ego. And me getting stuck in the ego is a biggest exploitation of myself by myself only. Whether the world understands that or not is a secondary issue. A seeker has to understand, because seeker is trying to get out of ego. How can I exploit anybody without my ego rising, without my ego becoming strong? It is not possible. So I am defeating the very purpose of spiritual life. If I am manipulating, if I am deceiving somebody, or I am trying to exploit somebody. And same happens to the opposite person also, actually. If somebody is exploiting me, that person is stuck up in their ego. And if I am stuck up in my ego, I will not be able to see the exploitation coming. So it is not spirituality which has made me naive. It is my ego which has kept me in a shell that I was not aware. A very simple example of that is Shakuni and Duryodhan. It looks like Shakuni is a well-wisher of Duryodhan, but Shakuni is actually a manipulative person who is out to destroy Duryodhan. Duryodhan could never see it. Why? Because he's trapped in his own ego. So people who are stuck in their egos, they are more susceptible and vulnerable to get exploited. Now this is the trick of samsara. This is why the earlier one said, "Na, it is ayathavat. You don't see it as it is. Anyatha swabhava. What it is, it doesn't appear like that. It appears that if I become spiritual, I will become vulnerable. But actually it is opposite. If I am egoistic, I am more vulnerable. Very easily people know where I am, what I am attached to. They can exploit. Spiritual person will not have attachment. What will you exploit? If I am truly spiritual, no attachment at all. Cause is important. Not I, not ego, no attachment. Then what to exploit? One will be stuck there. The other people will be stuck there. So this is the nature of samsara. One should be very alert in playing this game. That there are people out there who will do. And for many of them, we are not even people. We are objects to what you call, like a means. We are a means to get to their goal. After that, they'll discard. That's the reality of life. Full stop. If I don't know that reality and I cry at the end of it, oh, I never expected this, then that is foolishness. Like going in a desert and saying, oh, I didn't expect it to be so hot. Desert is going to be hot, burning hot it is going to be. Samsara is like that. We came into this samsara and now if we say that people are exploiting, I never expected this. This is the nature of samsara. People will exploit. People will take us for granted. People will use us as a means and throw us away. No, but till now in my life, I never had that experience. Now only I had. Okay. Lucky, some good karma, till now you didn't have. But now it happened because it is inevitable. That's the nature of samsara. How falling into the water in the flowing river, if I say, no, I didn't expect to become wet. It is not possible. One will become wet. So, there are things which are there in this samsara. The idea of this passage, this portion, is to reflect on this nature of samsara. That if this is what samsara is, why do I want to come here? This is a vriksha which needs to be cut. And where is that vriksha? Not out there. It is in here. And my false notions and my attachments which keep me bound. That's why in Tulsi Ramayana, Tulsidas said very nicely, in that Bhagavan Ram is saying that Chala kapat mohe chidrana bhava, nirmal man mohi so mohi pava. The person who has chal kapat in their mind will not reach the divine because they are going in opposite direction. Mind is filled with rajas and tamas. Nirmal man so mohi pava. The mind which becomes pure and calm, that mind will discover the divine. And discover the divine means discover all that we seek, happiness, love, peace, knowledge, all that. And so now this is the nature of the samsara. So aneka shata means, anek means many, shata means 100, meaning countless number of people, pakhanda buddhi vikalpa aspada. Their buddhi only is pakhanda. Hypocrisy, exploitation, deceit, manipulation, it goes on. By me becoming spiritual, they are not going to change. A snake will bite only. That is the nature of the snake. One very nice story is there. You must have heard also. A simple story, but powerful for a spiritual seeker. So there was this snake, and there was a snake pit. It used to stay in that snake pit, and the snake pit is on the path where people are traveling from one place to the other. They travel on the way this snake pit will come. And so this snake used to go out and sometimes will bite the people also. And so the snake, it was very dangerous and people were not able to go on to that path. So one day, one sadhu was there who had come to the earlier village. So they told the sadhu that, there is a snake like that and we are not able to catch that snake, and this snake goes on creating troubles on the way and sometimes it bites people also. So you please help us do something. So the sadhu said, okay. Now he went there. Now this sadhu, he waited. When the snake came, he is able to communicate with the snake. Sometimes we find it very funny, how can you communicate to snake? But if you see Yoga Shastra, they have proper descriptions of what happens when the Kundalini reaches a certain level, a certain chakra. So this Vishuddhi chakra, if the Kundalini comes to, then the yogi can understand and communicate with every type of creature in this whole creation. So this sadhu, he was speaking to the snake. And he said, why are you doing this? So many people get affected, their lives get destroyed. Don't do all this. Don't bite people. And this snake also, he felt the compassion, the love in the heart of the sadhu. So the snake said, okay, I will not do. But the snake used to be curious. And whenever people pass by, the snake will come out of the snake pit and see the people. People will also see the snake, but they know that this snake is dangerous, so they don't go anywhere close. They just quickly pass from there. One day, one group was going from there and they were getting scared. So one of them said, why should we be scared of this snake? Let us go and kill the snake. So they went, they took a lathi. They had a lathi, so they went there and they started beating the snake. The snake couldn't understand, what is happening here? Immediately the snake went inside the snake pit, got a few beatings, but quickly slipped and went inside the snake pit. Now the word spread that one group of people have beaten the snake. The snake is not as dangerous as before now. So the second group which came, that second group also did that. Now many groups which are going there now, they started increasing. And everybody started taking pride that, we beat the snake, we hit the snake and all that. So one day when the sadhu was passing by, the sadhu saw that the snake is in such a terrible condition and in so much of pain. The snake told the sadhu that, I followed what you said. Don't bite the people and look at my condition. When I transformed, what people have done to me, you just see. That's why I was biting people. For my self-protection, I was biting people. And you told me and I followed what you said, look at my condition. And what did the sadhu say? Sadhu said, I told you not to bite, but I never told you not to hiss. If they come near, you can spread your fangs, you can hiss and you can make them scared that they run away. You don't bite people, that's all. That's a simple story, but a powerful one to understand this, that if there are people who are out there to exploit, we should not get exploited. Our spiritual life should not make us so naive and dumb that we become inalert and allow people to exploit. If we need to show a certain assertiveness or even a certain authority, it requires, then it has to be done. But in our heart, we don't become malicious, we don't try to cunningly exploit them, destroy them. That is not required. Even if the fight has to happen, it has to happen because it's a duty and not for anything else. So when we understand this is the Swarup of Samsara, the idea is not to become pessimistic or brand people as negative or become frustrated or have trust issues. No, the idea is to understand, oh, this is the nature of samsara. What am I expecting from here? This is going to be like this. In everybody's life, there will be some point or the other when one would have got exploited. And one may feel stupid about it, one may feel bad about it, one may feel, how could I get exploited? But there are things to learn from there. Absolute vulnerability means fearlessness. Now, absolute vulnerability does not mean that I will get exploited. Absolute vulnerability means that I don't have any fear of getting exploited. That even if sometimes I get exploited after my best of my intentions, it doesn't prevent me from trusting further. It doesn't prevent me from living the good way of life. Some karmic reason, some inalertness I may have, some attachment I may have, I may get exploited. I learn from it and continue to move on. There's one dialogue from that Peaceful Warrior movie. Very nice one it is. Where this teacher and this student, both of them, they come out of a pub. And there are thieves who are there. Now, this student is a gymnast. This teacher also has trained him well. Now, both of them can beat these thieves. But the teacher uses that opportunity for something else only to teach him. So the teacher gives him the watch and those guys run away. He calls them. He says, take this jacket also. Would you like the shoes? The shoes will fit you. Give the shoes. So finally, they both are down to their shorts. Everything the teacher has given away. And this fellow, the student is wondering, we could have hit them. Why did you do this? And the teacher makes him reflect. Is it fear of death? Is it attachment? Is it being in the present? This guy goes on thinking about why, what was the lesson to learn in this? And then the teacher says this, absolute vulnerability. If you are able to come to that state of absolute vulnerability, then there is no fear at all. Our ego doesn't allow us to come to that state. Ego always makes us very insecure. And because of the fear of being exploited, we don't do many things. We don't have trust in relationships. We don't allow people to come close to us. We don't forgive people because we feel that if I forgive, they will exploit me. That is my fear. It is there in my mind only. And that the sad thing, as I said, is all these things which are supposed to help me, to protect me, they only become the cause of my exploitation actually. If I don't have fear of getting exploited, I'm ready to take risk. I'm alert. I learn. That's about it. As I said, out of 10, 2 times I may fail, 8 times I succeed. So why focus on those 2 times only? Focus on those 8. Learn from those 2 times, become more stronger and keep moving. That's all. So everybody at some point would have gone through that. Now, if I understand this is the nature of samsara, I know how to live, I know how to be alert, I know how to trust and love. A spiritual person loves much more than anybody else. The heights of spirituality is that, that you don't have hatred for anybody, including somebody who is trying to hurt and harm. But you can be alert. Unconditional love doesn't mean that you allow anybody to come and exploit. No. Especially when I know some things, I can be cautious. Nobody is telling a lot of exploitation to happen. But why to live out of that fear? If I'm alert, if I'm very cautious, if I'm able to learn my lessons and be internally strong and detached, that's all. So now these four are the nature of samsara. Aneka pakhanda buddhi vikalpa aspada. Then tattva jignasubhihi anirdharita etadam tattvaha. Those who are seekers, who want to know about this samsara, tattva jignasubhi, anirdharitadam, anirdharitedam tattvaha, anirdharita idam tattvaha. They have not yet determined what is the substratum of this creation, from where did it come, what is the nature of that consciousness. They have not yet discovered that, but they are jignasu, they want to know. But they have not approached the guru or studied the scripture systematically, or done proper viveka. There is a jignasa. I want to know what is the truth, what is the essence behind jiva, jagat, ishvara. I want to know. But anirdharita, not decided yet, not convinced, conviction is not there yet, systematic study has not happened. So the samsara has those people also, people who can manipulate, exploit. Then there are people who are seekers. Then there are people who follow the tradition and learn to understand. Vedanta nirdharita parabrahma moola saraha. Then there are seekers who study Vedanta, who go to the Guru, who understand ki, oh, there is a supreme Brahman. What is the nature of that Brahman? How is that Brahman my true nature? How is that Brahman appearing as this whole universe? Systematically, one studies properly, understands, and comes to ascertain, this is what it is. So the world has all. Now the choice is with us. Which type of people we want to go with. Here the analogy is being given for us to get more and more vairagya, and for us to identify the right type of people with whom we should proceed ahead in the journey. So Vedanta nirdharita parabrahma moola saraha. Now this is the general nature of the samsara. Now comes the specific analogy of the tree, where the seed, from where the tree came, the trunk, the branches, all those will get described now. So that comes the next part. So what is the seed now? Avidya, kama, karma, avyakta bija prabhavaha. See, in the seed, the whole tree is in an unmanifest form. And it is so amazing. The seed is this much only, sometimes very small seed. And what power is there in that one seed, that such a huge tree comes out. If you see banyan seed, it will be so small. But what a mighty banyan tree comes out of that. And that can last for so many years. And each of those trees will give rise to many fruits. In those fruits, there will be so many more seeds, that many more trees, countless. So what is the seed of this samsara vriksha? Avidya, kama, karma. This is the seed. So these three are called, in technical terms in Vedanta, avidya, kama, karma, they are called the knots of the heart also. They are actually that which bind us. Ignorance of the truth, then the desire, and action to fulfill the desire, which we learn as a big cycle. In short, it is these three, avidya, kama, karma. So we learn it as ignorance of the self, causes false identification with the BMI, which makes us feel the sense of incompleteness. And then there is a vasana. Vasana manifests as desire. Desire manifests as thought. Thought manifests as action. Then action gives results. Results will further increase or decrease the vasanas. Now this cycle goes on. This is the elaborate cycle. In short, it is avidya, kama, karma. That is the bija. Now, what is the meaning of bija? The root, the seed is that which is manifesting as the whole tree. In the same way, these three are the root cause of samsara. They have to be eliminated. Till avidya is not removed, samsara nivritti doesn't happen only. We may do some relief measures to quieten our mind, to attain some peace, to relax the body, which may be necessary at some stages in life, there is no doubt. But till the root is not destroyed, till the source is not destroyed, the tree cannot get destroyed. Now, in the example of the tree, you may say that there is no, that seed doesn't exist anymore because it becomes the root and then the shoot. One thing comes up, one thing goes down, the root and the shoot, and then seed is destroyed. Now, that's the limitation of the example. It is the seed only which has become the roots and the branches and all that. So that limitation of example, we don't need to worry about. In daily life, what is the thing to focus on? This avidya has to be eliminated. Without that, this samsara will not go. And so, avidya, kama, karma, avyakta bija prabhavaha. It is born from that. Prabhava means born. Samsara is born from that. Apara brahma, vijnana, kriya shakti, dvayatmaka, hiranyagarbha, ankuraha. Now from the seed comes the sprout, that is called ankura. So now what is that ankura? This total mind, which we call as hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha ankuraha. This sprout is the hiranyagarbha. And what is that hiranyagarbha? Apara Brahma. Apara Brahma means lower Brahman. Lower Brahman only means that it is manifest. Earlier is Avyakta and beyond Avyakta is the Supreme Brahman. But when that Avyakta manifests as the total mind, the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic mind, which further manifests as this gross world. Like even in our mind it happens. If you are attending the class right now, the class is a manifest state of an unmanifest desire that I must gain the knowledge of the Upanishad. That unmanifest desire then manifests, unmanifest impression then manifests as a desire that I must attend Kathopanishad. Then you sustain the thought that morning 7:15 Thursday Kathopanishad class I should attend. Then you log into Zoom. So it is a subtle process which becomes gross. In the same way, this whole Srishti, which is Thula Srishti, is in a subtle state first, in the mind of the creator. So that cosmic mind is total mind. All the minds put together, all the subtle bodies put together is called Hiranyagarbha. That Hiranyagarbha is the Ankura. And what is that Hiranyagarbha made up of? Jnana, Kriya, Shakti, Dvayatmaka. It has Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. By implication, Ichha Shakti also. Because without Ichha Shakti, this will not happen. So in some places, only two are considered, like here, Jnana and Kriya. But between Jnana and Kriya is Ichha, because knowledge gives rise to desire. The desire then will manifest in terms of action. Now, please remember, this is the knowledge of objective things. Self-knowledge doesn't give rise to desire. Objective knowledge can give rise to desire. Like if I know that rose can be made into gulkan, now that knowledge is there. So then there will be desire, let us get the rose and make it and put it in the pan, eat it. Ah, so nice, tasty. So knowledge gives rise to desire, desire makes me act. So three Shaktis are there, Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti. So the total mind has all these three And for any creation, these three are required. If I don't have Ichha, Kriya, Jnana Shakti, I cannot create properly. So the Ankura is that. The Hiranyagarbha is the Ankura. Apara Brahma, Vijnana, Kriya Shakti, Dvayatmaka, Hiranyagarbha, Ankura. Then Sarva Prani, Linga, Bheda, Skandha. What is the trunk? Skandha is the trunk. So he says Sarva Prani, Linga, Bheda. See, that sprout only grows to become the trunk. So this Hiranyagarbha, which is the total mind, that manifests further and it becomes the Linga Sharira of so many jivas. So all the subtle bodies of all the jivas, Sarva Prani Linga. Linga here means subtle body. See, actually the word Linga means an indicator. So when we say Shiva Linga, now that Shiva Linga means that which is indicator of Shiva. So the moment I see Shiva Linga, the mind goes to Shiva. Like a flag is a Rashtra Linga. Meaning, looking at the flag, I am reminded of my country. Looking at us, what reminds us of the presence of consciousness is the subtle body, because subtle body has the capability to reflect consciousness. Mind and intellect have that special capability, especially the human intellect has the special capability of self-awareness. As long as the subtle body is there with the gross body is alive. The moment that subtle body goes out of the gross body is dead. So this subtle body is the expression of life. Consciousness reflecting in the subtle body identifies with the gross body. That's how this body lives. The moment that departs, subtle body departs, gross body is dead. So linga means that, a sign. And here it means the subtle body. So sarva prani linga bheda, skandha. That is the trunk. All the different beings who are there, each of them has subtle body. All the living beings have subtle body. Only the nature of that subtle body changes. So plants have a very rudimentary element, rudimentary aspect of the mind. Animals have much more developed mind. Human being has much more developed mind plus intellect which can do subtle discrimination. Animals have an intellect which can do gross discrimination, but animals don't have self-awareness. Human being has self-awareness. So it's much more refined. So that's why he says linga bheda. There are different levels of the subtle body also. But all of these subtle bodies of all different beings put together, that is the trunk of this samsara vriksha. Sarva prani linga bheda skandha. Trishna jala avaseka udbhuta darpaha. Buddhi indriya vishaya. So now he says, what is the water that is feeding this samsara? This is very nice. Trishna jala avaseka. You nourish the tree with the water of Trishna. Samsara continues because of Trishna only. Insatiable thirst. No matter how much one gets, one wants more. No, I am very satisfied in life. With certain things I may be satisfied, but certain other things I want. It doesn't end. Till one realizes Brahman, it nothing ends. One may have some wealth, one may have good relationships, one may have name, fame, anything one may have. What one doesn't have, one is craving for that, or one is wanting what one has in more quantity. And somebody says, what is wrong in wanting? There is no problem in wanting. The problem is that I feel that after I get that, I will be more happy and I will be better. Until I don't get that, I am less happy. That is the false notion. By itself, wanting anything is not an issue. My dependence on it becomes the issue. And Trishna means that even after getting that, I am still not happy. Insatiable thirst it is. Can you imagine what is insatiable thirst? See, luckily, bodily, there is no insatiable thirst in us. Some people may have that disease, then there is a big problem there. But otherwise, bodily, even when we go through thirst, we take some water and we drink. Some people need less, some people need more, but their thirst gets quenched. Insatiable thirst means one goes on drinking water and still the thirst is not going at all. One still feels as thirsty as before. To a certain extent, we can understand that when we drink this cool drink. Now, in hot season, if I feel hot, so I take cool drink. But the more cool drink I take, more thirsty I become. Why? Because it creates that much more sugar in the body and that much more spike in the hormones and all that. I still feel temporarily the throat feels good, but the body is in a craving state only. Nothing will satiate as better as water. Now, to some extent, we can understand what is insatiable through that. Now, imagine whole life, I am continuously thirsty. What will be that life? I am talking even at body level. If we say, I am always thirsty, how much ever water I drink, it is not enough. A terrible life it will be. But that is what I am living in samsara. When insatiable thirst, no matter what one gets, one is still wanting more, more, more. And samsara will continue with this more only. The seeker's choice is when I say enough, bas now, how much more? And for how long? It is not going to end at all. We always thought or not, this insatiable thirst is like this. So first we thought, okay, when I clear this, 10 standard, then I will be happy. The 10 standard cleared. Then 12 standard cleared. Then graduation cleared. Got a job cleared. Where it is not ending only, it continuously goes. Then got married, then have children, then make them go through the same process. Still it is going on. Then grandchildren will have to go through the same process. There is no end to it. And still the mind doesn't turn towards the reality. The mind wants to do that again and again. One may be cribbing, complaining also. In one's own life, one has gone through enough. Cribbing about samsara, cribbing, complaining about relationships, about work, about marriage, about exploitation, about everything in the world, but my children must go through. They will do same to their children also. Samsara is continuously going on. Where it is going to end? Every time we thought, after this, my life will be very good and I will be happy. Something else comes again. It just goes on. Not only limited to this life. This goes on life after life after life. That is called Trishna. No, Swami, is a very pessimistic picture. We feel very content, very happy many times. Does that mean that I don't seek anymore anything internally? Craving has stopped? No. For that thing, craving must have gone. For something else, it is started. That's why the question in the Upanishad is what is that gaining which nothing more remains to be gained? That is what we actually seek. That is fulfillment. In the world, no matter what we get, it is not giving us that state at all. Either I want more of that or I want some other thing. But craving is not going. Bhaju Govindam, when we read, very deeply, Shankaracharya says that. How many examples he gives in that? Angam galitam palitam mundam dashana vihinam jatam tundam vriddho yati grihitva dandam tadapina munchati asha pindam. One has become old, one is not able to walk properly, the hair has fallen, the teeth have fallen, wrinkles have come. Still, Desire doesn't leave the person. In fact, Bhartrihari in Vairagya Sutakam, he said that. What he said? Body becomes older and older, desire becomes younger and younger. Trishnaika tarunayate. That's the nature of Trishna, it is. The new ways of enjoyment, entertainment, they will keep coming. And mind will want more and more. Even when one tries lot of tapas and one suppresses, that also doesn't help. Escapism doesn't help. Indulgence doesn't help. Suppression doesn't help. What to do then? Jnana vihina sarvamatena bhajatina muktim janma shatena. Until the knowledge of the self doesn't arise, it is not possible to get out of this Trishna. For knowledge of the self to arise, I must reduce the desires, transform them from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic, and the desire for satsang, desire for sadhana, desire for spiritual self, that will help to drop all the other desires, and finally this will also disappear. One comes to the state of absolute desirelessness. That's the seeker's path. Samsara is exactly reverse. No matter how much one achieves, people in the world will keep telling you to achieve more and more and more. And today it is at one state. See, this is a state of evolution. Okay, there is no condemnation of anybody in this. This is the wise seeker's approach to turn within, having understood the limitation. This is not to go and tell anybody that, "Arey, you people are samsaris and you are like this only and you go on running behind the world." No, no, no. Everybody is in a different level of evolution. At some stage in life, one needs to go through certain things, be outgoing, be ambitious and achieve great things out there in the world, have relationship. One needs to experience certain things for oneself to understand what it is. What is this craving inside that no matter what I get, it is still not going. One has to go through. So there is no question of condemning anybody. There is no question of looking down upon anybody. It's a mature judgment one has arrived by oneself for one's evolution. That's all. So in the world, if somebody says, "I am not satisfied, I need more and more and more," it is okay. Like a child needs baby food. Now, no adult who is grown up would ever say that what a kid it is. They will never condemn a child who is eating baby food, because the child needs only baby food. You cannot give anything else to the child. Slowly, as the child grows, then some more solid food and it keeps increasing. So levels will increase. So this is not to condemn anybody. This is for a seeker who has to turn within by understanding this is the nature of this world. And when the scripture is saying that Trishna is the water, that is for me to analyze that in me, what is that which is insatiable? Do I have insatiable thirst for certain things, and what are those things? Have I got them? Have I not got them? If I have got them, is there still a thirst for it? Then why is it there? If I have got them, I don't have thirst for that, I have thirst for something else, then what is that? So it is meant for me to introspect and become aware. Because one desire is enough to keep us extroverted for many years and sometimes many lives also. The faster I become aware of my Trishna, the better it is. I will know how to handle it and what should be done. So it is meant for introspection. So today we have seen what is the sprout, what is the trunk, what is the water. Now further branches, leaves, all that will come, that we take up in our next class. So I will put up the dates for May. I don't remember if I put up already on the group, but if I have not put up, I will put it up in the group. Anything to ask in today's class?
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
So, the last bit that you said, Swamiji, about that indulgence, suppression and escapism will not help dissolve the satiation. Yeah. So you said knowledge of the self, and after that, what did you say, Swamiji? What are the steps for that? getting the knowledge. So you were saying like getting the knowledge of the self is the only thing that will help satiate this craving.
Yeah, so the knowledge of the self will help to realize the state of complete fulfillment and happiness. But how to come to that? So I have to reduce my desires from tamasic to rajasic, rajasic to sattvic.
Okay.
Desires mean the desires for higher things like self-control, spirituality, satsang, reflection, all that. But many people ask that question that, oh, but this is also desire. But this is a desire which helps me to let go of the other desires. I realize that my true nature is anyway desirelessness. I don't have to cultivate desirelessness because as a self, my nature is desirelessness. So finally, these sattvic desires, they dissolve. When I realize, when I contemplate on that which is gunatita, which is beyond the sattva also, beyond the sattva guna also. So more I contemplate on that, these sattvic desires also will go. So the knowledge of the self then helps that person to then completely be fulfilled. Now there is no more any craving. So that's how one realizes.
So, but like, so is it that the sattvic desires will dissolve with contemplation?
With contemplation, because of sattva guna, I can sit in contemplation for a longer time and contemplate on that which is beyond sattva, which is the atma.
Okay. Okay, Swami. Thank you.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Hari Om.
I just wanted to ask you, when you said you should not have trust issue, that means even if you have trust or not trust, isn't it also external support you are seeking? Like even trusting somebody is you are having something that you are holding on externally. Can't you be just self-contained? Like whether you trust or not trust, it should not affect you because you are just doing your work. So even trusting somebody is going to give you that you are seeking happiness outside, even when you trust.
Now see, the question of trust comes because I have to interact with people. Internally, I may not depend on them or their actions for my happiness, but I have to trust. Na? Suppose I have given some, I have told somebody that will you do this work for me. Now that person I have to trust. Na? The vegetables I go to buy, I have to trust the vegetable vendor.
Yeah. Yes.
So basic trust is required. There is no psychological dependence on it. That is
yeah, I just wanted to confirm that. Yeah. So psychologically, you don't have to depend on anybody for the trust or something. Like it's a basic trust factor.
Transactional value.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
People are having psychological issue with trust. That is a challenge now here. Transactional trust is not a big issue. The issue is I don't want to love somebody because now that person is going to hurt me. Now I don't trust that person. So I don't want to invest in my time, my energy, my love in the person. So that it becomes a psychological issue. So then one is living in a shell, not wants to turn introvert because one is insecure.
Yes. So I'm not talking about insecurity part of it. It's just normal. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.